General Mike Flynn joins us, I think, by phone now. General Flynn just landed in D.C. General Flynn, your assessment, Tulsi put this out over the weekend. What is your assessment of where we stand? President came in hard last night to support this, wants action. What are your initial thoughts here?
Okay, a couple of tactical and then overall, Steve. I think immediately, the Department of Justice should suspend or revoke the passports of every single person that was in the national security component of the Obama regime and probably Biden, starting with Obama himself. I mean, do not allow these people to abscond from the United States of America, because some of them, I guarantee, are contemplating it because of what has been exposed. Number two, there should be a task force. If there's not one already, there should be a task force of federal officers that are put together. And I mean, it should have happened over the weekend. But if it hasn't, Pam Bondi needs to put a federal law enforcement task force together right now, and they need to start looking at which homes they're going to raid, just like they raided Mar-a-Lago and President Trump. They need to start thinking about raiding Kalorama. They need to start thinking about raiding some of these other people, because I guarantee they have in their own files in their homes more evidence that belongs to the U.S. government. And that evidence is going to come to light anyway, one way or the other. Number three, there are whistleblowers that I know have already stepped up to the plate, and some might be people who you don't, who are those that are sort of, oh my God, I didn't realize that this person would sing. You know what I'm saying? So there are people that I know that are in the whistleblower category now that are going to help this case. We are looking at the potential, because Obama was a commander in chief, right? So is there, this? I'm not a lawyer, but I think that legally there should be some conversations at the Department of Justice and probably at the White House, is whether or not that these conspiracy charges, these traitorous charges that have been stated certainly by Tulsi and by others, even the president with some of the information that he's been putting out over the last 48 hours, should there be some type of military trial for Obama? Because this is something that there is no statute of limitations for this. And this is Steve, and I'll shut up here in a second. This is the greatest crime committed in the history of the United States of America, unimaginable to the majority of Americans, that a coup would be attempted by one president against another president of the United States of America. But in fact, ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what happened.
You're saying this. Let me start with the last first. You're about military tribunals, and he was commander in chief. You're saying because even with what happened, the Kennedy coup, the Nixon, and maybe Johnson is still, a very dark cloud on Johnson in the first situation. You never really had the active hand of a former president in a coup against the person that was freely elected to be your follower. Is that why you're saying this is unprecedented in American history? And does what you've seen today with the declassification by Tulsi show you, as a former head of DIA and the president's national security advisor and spent a lifetime in intelligence, that Obama directly had his hand involved in this, sir?
So number one, the answer to the last part, yes, Obama clearly had his hand directly involved in this. And I think that this new revelation of the 8 December 2016 Oval Office meeting, to me, is very clear that happened. For Kennedy, of course, JFK was replaced by Johnson, who hated Kennedy, and he wanted the job. So nothing really happened. There was the commission after Kennedy. It ended up in nothing. And what did we learn? We learned it, because Trump released the files. We learned that the CIA was directly involved in the assassination of a president. Nixon, the person who ended up replacing Nixon was Gerald Ford. Where did Gerald Ford come out of? The U.S. Senate. And what did Gerald Ford sit on? He sat on the commission that investigated the JFK assassination. I mean, it's just unbelievable what happened back then, that where elements of our government were basically conducting subversive activities. And we now know it, right? We now know it only because President Donald J. Trump had the guts to run again. And as much abuse as he took, and we all know this, and especially you and I, we know the abuse he took in his first administration And then what they did to him afterwards, they didn't think that this guy was ever going to win again. And here he is. So here's Donald J. Trump, nothing to lose except this country and the legacy that he will leave for this country. Will be, he'll have a great economy, and we're, he's really digging into the foreign policy and the border and all this other stuff. But the greatest legacy he can leave is to destroy this socialism that exists in our government, these communists. And you do it by holding people accountable. And you start with, in this case, with what we just learned over the last couple of days, you start with Barack H. Obama, intentionally, brought his team together and said, we didn't think he was going to win, but now that he won, we can't allow this guy to govern. And they tried immediately to undermine the presidency and the president of the United States of America, and they did it in such a vicious attack. And that's why I say this is the greatest crime in the history of this country. And the legal experts that we have in our government, and in this country, they need to look at this thing and go, okay, how do we adjudicate this? Because it has to be done. There are going to be people that must go to prison over this. We cannot have the likes of Obama. We can't have people like Comey, Brennan, Clapper, Susan Rice. We can't have them walk in the streets as free as though they did nothing. That this was a directive, an order that they were following. Well, ask those that were hung after the end of the World War II that said, I was just following orders of Hitler, right? I mean, this is what we're facing right now, and people have got to take this very, very seriously. And we can't have years-long investigations, Steve. No, we're done with that. There is so much evidence that's available. Hell, we already had IG investigations. We had, all the other investigations that occurred for years that brought out all kinds of evidence. Now we have the bravery of Tulsi Gabbard and Donald J. Trump in the White House. Tulsi Gabbard at the DNI, and she is on a tear right now, and good for her.
General Flynn, we'll get you back on when you get settled. Just real quickly, a lot of the audience, they're concerned. Your number 2 is to get the federal task force ready to do raids on the homes. They're concerned about, are guys clearing their electronic devices right now?
Yeah, I'm concerned about that. But something, I will tell you, having been involved in the intelligence business for a long time, they're going to have to burn them to the ground, because there's something called the cloud, Steve, the cloud. And I know what organizations like the National Security Agency out of Fort Meade can do, and other capabilities that we have. So these people know that they're not going to be able to hide from the egregiousness of what we just discovered. Last point, Steve, what Tulsi Gabbard found, and what we're seeing is we're seeing the exposure of communications that were not classified, but they were using classified systems to communicate, to hide these communications. It may be a little bit in the weeds, but Obama and these other criminals were using classified systems to hide their criminal behavior so nobody would ever find it. That's what Tulsi Gabbard is also demonstrating to the American people, that these scum were hiding their attempted coup against President Donald J. Trump during his first presidency, and they need to be dealt with.
And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, they kept it in draft form. They used classified channels that they knew couldn't be breached, and they did it in a certain way to know that it wouldn't be finalized enough that it would have to be turned over, correct?
Correct. Like, if I do a draft, if I do something and I put it in my draft box, my draft folder, but I give you the user ID and password, so you can go into that same system, and you just type in the user ID and password, and now you get access to the draft folder. It's a very sneaky, slimy way for some of these people who are criminals to do these kinds of things. And I guarantee this is where Tulsi Gabbard, what her and her team discovered.
General Flynn, where do people go to get you've got a new book out. You've got tons of information on this on your social media. You've got a film out. Where do people go to get all your content, including your social media, your Twitter feed?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. They can go to generalflynn.com, and they can find everything.
General Flynn, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you in Washington.
Yep. Godspeed, Steve.
General
Thanks.
Mike Flynn.